are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
¿Cómo están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge, where sleeves are optional. I'm Mike, that's Evo, and we are back. Oh, gosh. On a beautiful Sunday morning.
Back.
Yeah. That was a little rough. We're back on a Sunday morning, bringing everybody some awesome sports topics. We got college basketball, we got baseball. It's fucking back finally. We're gonna talk the NFL prospects and all the shit that is not happening inside the NFL because there are some quarterback moves that we are still waiting to happen. But I'm pumped. I'm ready to be here. I'm gonna get done with this, go into Cleveland, have a nice little afternoon. My mother-in-law is in town. Show her the town a little bit before she's got to head out. But Evo, how's your weekend going? I know you guys got some plans later on as well. You're going out, maybe hitting the lake today.
Yeah, it's pretty nice out here in Arizona. So far this weekend, it's been relatively laid back. Friday evening went the lady accepted an award on behalf of her business from a youth flag football group for their support there. She got to meet Mike Bankston, who is a former defensive tackle for the Cardinals and the Bengals, and I took some pictures of that. Didn't say hi to him myself because I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't know who he was. Right. I didn't even know his name at first, but he actually seemed like a relatively solid, if not average, defensive tackle for Cardinals and Bengals for about 9 years in the NFL. So had himself a decent little career. And then yesterday just chilled, did some stuff around the house, some daddy work, yard work, things like that, because it is starting to get pretty nice out here in Arizona. We're in the 70s, catch a couple rays. And then last night it was going out drinking, throwing some axes at the Urban Axe Yard here in town, and then a couple drinks later at the bar. So good night. And then we're gonna head out after the show here and catch some rays at the beach because it's finally nice out, and I got to tan these nippies up.
Very nice. I'm very jealous of that. It's still not that nice. It's nice-ish. I almost tried to go play golf yesterday. Thank God we didn't after we got done doing our Little League draft because it immediately started thunderstorming right around the time we wanted to go. So I'm still waiting to get out there and try to hit some sticks. But man, I'm ready for the warm weather. And like I said, baseball season is upon us. We went through and did a Little League draft yesterday, sent out introductory emails to all of our parents. And man, I'm excited to get this week started. Our first practice is going to be Friday. I feel like we got a pretty good group. Some of these kids I do know, some of them I don't know, but I am very, very excited for baseball season to start. And this is actually my first time being the head coach of a team. All the other times I've been an assistant coach, but because my schedule kind of allows me to be a head coach now, decided to take that on. So I am pumped. I know Graydon is pumped for, Little League season to get here. And baseball is just one of those great, great games that I don't know how you cannot be romantic about baseball, man. That's one of my favorite things in the world is talking about baseball. And that's kind of going to be how we start the show since MLB is just getting underway. Let's talk about Major League Baseball. And there's some massive changes and changes that I wasn't sure that I was going to love, but God damn it. I love the fucking pitch clock. It is awesome. It speeds the game up. There is constant action. Now, some pitchers are having a hard time adjusting. James Karinchak found that out his very first night out on opening day. But God, it is so fun to watch, just constant action. I'm trying to not become a clock watcher instead of a game watcher, but that extra element just adds a little bit more excitement to the game.
With it being new, it's one of those things that you're going to have to, we have a play clock in football that we're kind of used to, passively watching.
Shot clock in basketball.
And we have that internal clock now wired into us to be like, seems like they haven't done anything for a second. Where's the play clock at? Checking that out, but not constantly watching it. Because, of course, you want to watch the game, and it's going to be an adjustment there for baseball now to get that internal clock going with it. But you say that you like it so far. Tell the people exactly what that pitch clock is. Like, how long is it? And then what the repercussions are of not meeting it.
So pitch clock, when there are no runners on the base, pitcher has 15 seconds to make sure that he delivers the ball. However, that is not the only stipulation in that. It's not just on the pitcher. The batter also must be ready. The batter has to be in the box, looking at the pitcher, ready to receive the pitch at 8 seconds. So essentially, the batter has 7 seconds to get ready. The pitcher has 15 seconds to make sure that that ball is delivered, or at least has started his windup. If he does not start the windup, that is an automatic ball for the pitcher. So that is not a great thing. If the batter is not ready by that 8-second mark, that is an automatic strike. So we are seeing guys that are getting extra strikes or giving up extra balls because they're not ready. So there is an adjustment. That's with no runners on. Once a runner gets on, that clock gets bumped up to 20 seconds. That way they can make sure that they have some time, hold runners on. But the pitcher's also only allowed to disengage from the mound 2 times. He can step off, make a throw over, step off just to recollect. If he steps off again, he has to make a move and he has to get the pick off to happen. If he doesn't, that runner is going to get an extra base. Along with those guys on base, bases are closer. So we're seeing an increased number of steals. It's more action on the baseball field. There's a lot of old baseball guys that fucking hate this. And I think that they are crazy. It speeds the game up. If you go back to when some of these old heads were really loving the game, they talk about the 70s and the 80s of baseball. Games didn't fucking take 3.5 hours like they do now. They were much, much quicker. This is the fastest the games have been in 46 years. Well, 46 years ago was in the mid fucking 70s when all these people were talking about the game being so great. It just sped the game up to the pace that it used to be. It's awesome. The game is better for it. I love the fucking pitch clock rule.
I always question major changes like this in sports. I mean, we've questioned it before, changing how the shift can work and stuff like that, and this pitch count. So I'm always one to take a step back and be like, I don't know if I like it, but it sounds like overall you're seeing positive things from it. I've seen a lot of stuff written up about it being positive. I haven't myself watched a game yet, so to get a true feel, I'm going to have to sit down and watch a couple games. Are there any sort of like changes with that base runner where, the pitcher can only come off the mound so many times and things like that? Is there anything stopping the base runner a little bit more?
So not really.
Like that's leaning more towards the base runner.
It absolutely is leaning more towards the base runner. If you get a guy that throws over twice, you can go ahead and maybe take a little bit bigger lead, because if he comes over, he has to get you. So you could be a little bit more dangerous. So you can get a slightly bigger lead. And with the closer bases, that's going to lead to more stolen bases. That's what I know. There are people that love defense. We get, our guy, Joe Rockstar, on our show talking about how he loves the defense. We don't talk about enough defense when we're talking about football. Listen, defense is great. I'll watch a pitching duel all day in Major League Baseball, but that's not what every fan wants to see. Chicks dig the fucking long ball. There's a reason that commercial came out in the 90s. Like, that's what people want to see. They want to see offense. But now we're seeing more types of offense. We're not just seeing the 3 true outcomes. We're not seeing the home run, a walk, or a strikeout. We're getting more balls in play, more running. It's just a better all-around game.
All right. Has there been any adjustment yet that you've seen as far as pitchers with pitch speed or pitches being a little bit more wild with that, not having the couple extra moments to calm down? Is it causing them to fatigue quicker?
Yeah, so we are going to start seeing a little bit quicker fatigue. You don't get that longer break. Guys won't throw 110 pitches in the game. Because that 80 pitches that you are going to throw is going to come at a much quicker pace than that 110 that you were throwing. So we're going to see guys that are not going to go late into games nearly as much unless they just have excellent fucking cardio. That makes the bullpens much more crucial, because you're going to get starters who are getting tired quicker. We're going to see guys go 5 and 6 innings, and that's going to be about it. I don't know that we're going to have too many guys with this increased pitch clock who are going complete games, just because the pace is so much quicker. And there is a definite adjustment. James Karinchak, I brought up. He's a guy that was notorious for being slow with his movements and his kind of pre-pitch routine. struggled the first night, came back last night, got in a little bit of trouble, but was able to work out of it. So there's a definite adjustment. Guys who are used to those longer routines are having to make the switch to be quicker, and we're seeing a little bit more, maybe not on as much velocity and on target, but that's also going to lead to more offense, which is what MLB was trying to do with the game, I believe.
Yeah, well, and to me, it feels like baseball became so much more of a pitcher's game than the entire team game, because you're getting guys that are so damn elite out there. Now, I mean, of course, you have your elite batters, but they're a little bit more few and far between. Whereas pitchers, it just seems like they're snipers out there throwing so much heat that it just becomes a pitcher's game. And now it's this switches it up and kind of, I don't want to, takes out the pitcher at the heel, but I mean, it definitely seems like it's going to pull that pitcher back a little bit and make it much more of a defensive game. And a batter's game, which, I mean, let's be completely honest, baseball kind of needed. Baseball was not in a great spot.
No, I talked about this on another show I do for Cleveland State, Inside the Business of Sport, and we talked about the business aspects and how things are going to adjust. But baseball really struggled for a half a generation, almost to a full generation, where they lost a lot of people. We saw this year, we only got 7 teams in our major league. So the numbers are down. We need to get the excitement back into baseball to get those numbers back up. We lost a group of people who don't have that same love, that same romanticism of baseball like there used to be. And I think this is something that could pull that back in because it is so much more exciting. And I posed this question on the other show that I do. I'm going to pose it to you. Who is the face of Major League Baseball? Who is their poster child? Any idea? Would you, if you
Mike
had
Trout, Shohei Ohtani? That's about it. That's what I can think of off the top of my head.
For me, it's Shohei Ohtani, right? Because he's doing things that we have never seen. You can go back and say that Babe Ruth did the same things, but he didn't do the same things. People have heard me talk about this before.
I would probably lead with Shohei, just because, I mean, we just saw the World Baseball Classic and how big he was over there in the Asian market. I mean, they had like
96% of homes in Japan were tuned in for that fucking final out. That is an asinine number of households watching the World Baseball Classic.
It was incredibly dramatic baseball, which is a sentence that you do not hear very often anymore.
Right.
And so to pull, like, it's going to be difficult because the World Baseball Classic is its own big thing because it's not done every year. And it is kind of that pitting of the nations. It's that Olympic style feeling to a baseball match that you don't have very often. So that's going to have its own kind of grandeur and drama and stuff like that. But MLB being played every single year has to find a way to try to pull that sort of audience viewership and drama.
Absolutely.
And, sounds like the pitch clock is doing a little bit of that. It's actually speeding things up.
It is. And for me, Shohei Ohtani is the face of baseball. You kind of alluded like that would be a guy that you would think of. You want to talk about a rule change that is going to affect the biggest player in the world. It's this rule. Shohei Ohtani has to deal with it as a batter and as a pitcher. This is a great, like, Shohei is going to be a massive household name because he's dealing with this pitch clock rule on both sides. So he's going to understand it. He's going to be a massive, excuse me. He's going to be a massive part of the way the game can be marketed to make it more entertaining for these kids. I don't want a bunch of kids who are 10 and 11 and 12 years old being like, I want to be just a great third baseman. I want somebody who wants to pitch and hit and can play third and go fucking make a play in center field. And Shohei Ohtani is the perfect example of that. And now we have a rule that is going to affect him on both sides and make him even more marketable. I love this for the game, and I love it for the face of baseball and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, it seems like an overall positive switch. I mean, we're only a couple games in so far. I know my Twins are currently undefeated, 2 shutouts, so that's great. Obviously, we're going to the World Series, but we're the Guardians of last year right now, or something like that. I don't know.
Well, but we are still the youngest team in baseball. The Guardians are. We are 2-1 right now. But It's going to be a dogfight, I think, this year. You guys are going to be fairly decent, and I know that we're going to be good again. So I'm excited to see the way that AL
We're
Central
decent.
shakes
We're
out.
decent right now, Mike.
Yeah, you're decent right now. We'll see how the pitching
give it a
holds
couple
up.
weeks and then a couple months.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well, apparently
Yeah.
Byron Buxton is going to be playing a lot of DH, not so much center field, to preserve his body, which should be good for you guys.
That's a smart move.
Yeah,
It's a smart move.
But in terms of baseball, I got nothing else. The World Baseball Classic was unbelievable. We just talked about some of the numbers. 96% of the homes in Japan were watching. You get the two best players in the world on opposing sides, their teammates. It was fantastic. I love baseball. Baseball season is back. I cannot fucking wait to watch more baseball.
That's why Shohei is that face of baseball, because he's Mr. International. Like, as American baseball fans, we like to claim him as part of MLB, and obviously you have that entire Asian market claiming him as their guy. Like, he's breaching all sorts of borders. So it's awesome to see him, and just the style of play, which is just so unique. We haven't seen that since like a Babe Ruth, and
Babe didn't even do it the way that Shohei's doing it.
Yeah.
I get a lot of old baseball heads who will love to debate me on that, but Shohei's doing things that Babe Ruth never did.
Yeah.
But I got nothing else baseball wise.
Yeah.
So let's turn our attention. Let's turn our attention to college basketball, because what a fucking weird year. Everybody's brackets were fucked after probably the round of 32, getting into the Sweet 16. Most people did not have some of those teams going, and then you get to the Final Four. 4 teams nobody expected. A lights out first semifinal game with FAU going down. I loved the run that team had, but they were unable to get it done. And then you get another team on the opposite side of UConn, one of those blue bloods that's been there for forever, and now they're finally getting back into national prominence. They win against Miami. They're going to have a chance to go and win their 5th national title. It has been a wild, wild year, but college basketball is better for it. And I think this is a product of NIL and the transfer portal. With those two things in place and the ability to move around and go make money while you're in college, this is the kind of parity I would expect that we're going to see a lot more of as college basketball continues on with all of these things in place.
Yeah, it's an interesting year for sure. Having now San Diego State University and UConn there in the championship game, it's a bracket that no one, I think, had expected, unless you were some sort of a homer for one of those teams, sending them all the way. But even then, you're only getting 50% of the equation. Do you have one of those teams that you feel better about going into this final matchup?
I mean, I like UConn because that program has been there. They've done it. However, that is not where my rooting interest will lie. I want to see San Diego State go out there and win a national title when nobody expected them to be able to do so. Yep. I don't think most people had them getting out of the round of 32. So I'm full in on San Diego. And this is, I'm excited. It's going to be a great game. That game with San Diego and FAU was insane. Last second buzzer beater to send your team to the national goddamn championship. You dream of that moment as a kid. Like, that is exactly what you're playing the game for, is to be in those clutch situations and then you cash in on it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I'm obviously not super invested in it, but I've kind of been passively following along, in San Diego State University is where I'm going to be rooting as well.
All right. So we're going to stick with college basketball real quick, and we're going to transition to the women's side, because this women's side has got an absolute fucking dog in it in Caitlin Clark. She is the best player in college basketball. She is so exciting to watch, and I love her fucking moxie and her just absolute swag that she carries around on the court. Even post games, we get comments from LSU people saying, "Oh, you can't guard us like you did with South Carolina. It's disrespectful. You play like that, and we're gonna smoke you guys." And she's like, "Why the fuck would we play you guys like them? This is a completely different team. We're gonna." Obviously, she's not giving away how they're gonna play them, but I am all in on Caitlin Clark. She is a dog, man.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention to women's basketball, I don't want to say I fault you, because it can be difficult to watch sometimes, but you should be watching at this point in time because we're starting to see this generational talent, or it seems to be a generational talent come out. I don't want to say the Michael Jordan of women's basketball, but I mean, we haven't seen this level of play, especially whether it's WNBA or women's college basketball. We haven't seen this in quite some time. She's just a statistical freak. The stuff that she's doing, I mean, is rivaling that of WNBA players right now, obviously at a lower level. But, you know, she's a 21-year-old junior point guard from Iowa, just out in the middle of the cornfields. And she is the most electric women's basketball player, it seems like, that we've seen in a long time, hitting three-pointers from NBA level. She's assisted in, I believe, 50 or 64% of all points scored by her Iowa Hawkeyes team in this NCAA tournament. Like, she's just a very, very special player. And we love promoting women's basketball and women's sports. And this is absolutely someone that if you've got a daughter or something like that, you're watching, you got a daughter and you want them to feel proud about their sports, absolutely turn in this tournament, absolutely watch Caitlin Clark, because she's someone that's going to be a great role model for years to come for women in sports. She's doing amazing things out there right now.
Yeah, she absolutely is, man. I'm excited for that game. I have not watched a ton of the women's tournament. I caught a little bit of the Cleveland State. Obviously, I have a vested interest there, but I am definitely going to watch this national championship game because I want to see Caitlin Clark just go out there and fucking ball, dude.
I mean, she's in the tournament right now, averaging 27.7 points per game, 8.6 assists, 7.2 rebounds. That was over the year. Just in the tournament, it's 32.2 points per game, 10.4 assists, and 5.8 rebounds in the tournament. So we're talking spectacular numbers, you know, for anybody here. She's just playing a different brand of basketball out there right now.
Yeah, she absolutely is. All right, I got nothing else college basketball wise. You got anything else?
No, sir. I'm ready to move on.
All right, we're going to make the transition. We're going to get into the NFL. But today on our show, we're going to go through some of the best offensive lineman prospects and some of the tight end prospects. But before we get to that, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the story that will not go away because, well, the stories that will not go away because nothing has happened with either one of these players. Aaron Rodgers is still a fucking Packer, and Lamar Jackson is almost certainly not going back to the Ravens. He has requested a trade, and I don't know that there is a end in sight for either one of these situations. We talked about it before. The Aaron Rodgers thing, we knew this was going to take a long time. I think people were hoping that there was going to be a quick resolution, but as soon as we heard kind of the way things were going down and the darkness retreat, we knew that this was going to be a long, drawn-out process because we love the drama if we're talking to Aaron Rodgers. But the drama is not necessarily revolving around Aaron Rodgers. It comes with the compensation. You and I called it a couple of weeks ago. The Packers were absolutely looking for a first-round pick. They wanted 13. They were dead set on getting 13 from the Jets, and there was no way the Jets were going to come off of 13 and give that up. And now the compensation is drastically different on some of the possibilities that are coming out. I thought maybe 2-2s, but you're reading reports that I have not seen that are suggesting a far lower compensation for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's a interesting one. I mean, the word of the week has been leverage when we're talking about who has the leverage in this trade. When it comes to Lamar Jackson, who has the leverage? I think it's pretty obvious there. But with Aaron Rodgers, Packers wanted to pick 13. They wanted it bad. Packers fans were willing to accept nothing other than pick 13. On all the online message forums and stuff that I've seen, they've pretty much basically stated as a foregone conclusion, we're getting 13. We're not trading him for anything other than 13. And I just like to sit back and laugh because it's like, you've got no way to pressure the Jets into giving you that. Nope. You can't, because I really feel like they would rather just take the L than give you 13 in this situation. And that's the way that it seems like it's turning out, where now it's talking about a second round pick this year is what is going to be given over for Aaron Rodgers this season. Next year is where all the discrepancy is starting to come into play. It sounds like there will be another pick somewhere second or third round that will be sent from the Jets over to the Packers. But there are modifiers to this that change dependent on how the Jets do this year, how many games Aaron plays, how well he does. Does he get MVP? Do they make the Super Bowl? That will change the Jets pick. And then also, if he calls it quits after a year, that can result in the Packers having to send a pick to the Jets. So the Jets might receive even more compensation other than just receiving Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers hangs up the cleats and actually calls it. So it's hedging their bets a little bit. It sounds like, obviously it's like it could work itself up to a first round pick next year if he has a very good season and the Jets get everything that they want out of him. However, if he calls it quits, yeah, the Packers would get a first round pick, but they are going to have to send something like a second or a third round pick back to the Jets for them taking on just a 1-year contract. So it's interesting how it's working out. That sounds to me like the most fair type of situation, honestly, because neither team is in a great spot in this as far as the leverage is concerned. The Jets are the ones that are able to kind of sit back and wait and not do anything. And the Packers are the ones that are on a shot clock because they're the ones that hold the contract right now. They're the ones who are going to have all that money hit. And they're the ones that need extra picks or want those extra picks for this draft. So we're less than a month away now from the NFL draft, and they're on that shot clock. So the Jets are just going to sit back, let them stew. And the league meetings just got done up in Phoenix over this last week. We had a couple different changes to rules. We're not having reviewable plays of roughing the passer, which to me, I kind of wish that they would have done. We do have the number 0 back in the league. So players can be playing that. That'll be kind of cool. But those owners meetings, we saw a little bit more come out about, Gutekunst being saying that just can't get a hold of Aaron. We tried to talk to him, couldn't get a hold of the guy. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how he claps back because he's going to.
This is the fucking 3 Spider-Men. This is 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other saying, it's your fault that this isn't happening. And it really, honestly, this comes down to the Packers. We knew that Aaron was going to be this way. The Packers probably knew that Aaron was going to be this way. So I don't know that we can really hold it against him because this is who he is. That's just that is the nature of the player. And the Packers are against him. Yeah, I know you will, but the Packers are in a no-win situation. They have to move on. They have to move on.
And they didn't even give a resounding thumbs up to Jordan Love. I mean, obviously he's going to be their starter going forward, but they weren't saying that he's a sure thing either, which is smart because he's not. But I mean, it doesn't sound like they're on the most stable platform right now. They're ready to move on and start a new future there. Just because you've had 2 generational successes in a row that have lasted you, over 20 years doesn't mean it's going to continue. You're not like the quarterback mecca. So
it's absolutely not the quarterback mecca. They're in trouble. But let's get off of Aaron Rodgers and let's transition over to the Lamar Jackson story because there were some possible ties between the Jets saying, fuck it, we're not going after Aaron Rodgers. We'll just give up the 2 1s for Lamar Jackson. But their GM comes out and says that we cannot do that. We would be operating in bad faith with the Packers if we were to move off and go with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has officially requested a trade. He put out as much on his Twitter. And I don't know how this shakes out for Lamar. I hope he goes somewhere other than the Ravens and is paid by somebody who really wants his talents there.
Yeah, it sounds like he's really just searching for anyone to give him his money that he wants right now. Saying he doesn't want it all fully guaranteed now, but he still expects the guaranteed portion to match that of Deshaun Watson's. I think it's a little ridiculous. But I mean, I can make arguments either way on this. It depends on which side of the fence I really want to be on. But at the end of the day, we've talked in the show before where I said the Ravens shouldn't bring him back. That I didn't think that his brand of football long-term would benefit the team, especially with the amount of money that they would have to fork over to him. It's not a race thing. It's not this is just purely the brand of football that he plays. is a dangerous brand of football, and those gigantic guaranteed contracts I don't think are good for the NFL. Just because one team was able or willing to go out and do that for Deshaun Watson despite all of his issues
One team was
doesn't
willing to go
mean
fuck over the rest of the league with a contract, a poison pill contract.
it doesn't mean that that's the norm for the NFL. Just because one person is crazy doesn't mean that everybody's crazy. So, I mean, I think he will get paid. It sounds like he's still in talks with the Ravens, despite wanting a trade to try to get the contract. It does seem purely about the money to him at this point.
Was that a leverage thing, you think? Putting out the public trade request to get the Ravens to come back and play ball? Because I feel like that has alienated a lot of Ravens fans saying, fuck Lamar. We don't need him back.
I mean, yeah.
Well, they kind of do. They kind of do need him back because what they have behind Lamar is not going to do it. They're going to have to probably try to go draft another goddamn quarterback this year.
I mean,
And I don't think they'll be able to move up for one, though.
The situation that they're in is, they would have to try to move up for one this year or hope to be bad enough this year to go after one of the top end guys next year, like a Caleb Williams or something. But, it's probably not going to happen. So they want to, they should want to resolve this as soon as possible. But Lamar not having an agent is like, it's twofold, right? Not only does he want this kind of silly contract, and again, I understand that he was an MVP. I understand that he's putting up incredible stats when he's on the field. But the brand of football that he plays does not bode well for his longevity. And
we've seen over the last 2 years, the injuries have started to pop up.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you saw this, but I had actually postulated back on March 21st on the Lineman Lounge Facebook page an idea for a contract for Lamar. Now, did you read that at all?
I did. And I actually really like what you put on there.
I thought it was fair because it hedges the team against his injury possibilities, but it still gives him a lot of money and a lot of guaranteed money and allows him to go out and
get a lot more after that as well.
Yeah. It allows him to go out and prove that he can stay healthy for, seasons at a time. So what I said is you offer him $115.5 million per year on a 3-year contract that is fully guaranteed. That's about $38.5 million per year on average. That still isn't the best contract out there per year average for a quarterback. But as far as guarantees, that's putting him at or above like Kirk Cousins levels, which is the closest guarantee next to Deshaun Watson, like fully guaranteed contract that we've seen. And then you have a modifier on that. It's a $500,000 incentive for every single game that he plays, that he is active for on game day. If you count in all 17 games over that contract, that would be giving him $47 million per year annually on average. That's about that range that he's looking for, the 45 plus per year. And it would essentially be guaranteed as long as you're playing the game. As
long as you're playing.
So to me, that makes sense. There's been some questions now because he's pissed at the Ravens. Is he going to be willing to possibly take less to go play for someone else out of spite? And we could see that. But the fact that he hasn't moved on his asking price or anything like that yet, and we haven't seen any other movement regardless, it makes me feel like the money is his only focus right now. And yeah, go out and get that generational money, buddy, but you can do that at a lower amount that is going to make it reasonable for other teams to get you, because it's just too big of a concern right now with the injury stuff going on. And like I said, this is twofold. Him not having an agent, whether it's right or wrong, it is hurting this process. Obviously, the league put out some notices to every team saying, don't contact this random dude that's talking to you because someone is trying to work on his behalf. His mom is technically operating as his agent, but she is not a NFLPA certified agent, so she is not allowed to do any sort of contract negotiations with teams. I've learned more about agents in this process than I knew before. The most that an agent can take, according to NFLPA rules from a player, is 3% of their contract. So if they do a deal with a team, they're only getting 3% at max. And most of them, for this sort of a deal, for this big of a guy, are willing to say, we'll take 1% or nothing. we'll be your agent for every other deal that you do, and that can be negotiated separately how much of a take that we get, because
10%
Lamar's
probably.
sponsorships and stuff like that are going to be huge. But hey, you want $250 million? We can make that happen for you. We'll take nothing of it as long as you let us in on a piece of the pie for everything else. And because he doesn't have an agent that can go around and talk to these other teams, it is hurting him right now. I think that he needs to take a step back and get a check with reality. And that's what an agent will do for you too, is say, hey, no one's going to pay you this, man. We're going to get you the best deal possible. We're dogs. Everyone knows that agents in the NFL are cutthroat for their guys.
Dogs.
They'll get you some good money, especially if you're that talented. But you got to have someone out there greasing the wheels for you and making it happen. And it's just not going to happen until he gets a true agent. Yes, we see players go out and negotiate their own deals all the time.
Not this level of contract, though.
Not this amount of money. When you're talking guarantees, that is guaranteed money that is being put in escrow day one by the owner. So for an owner to sign off on that, they have to have a shitload of money lying around, and they have to be willing to sign off on it too. You're not just talking about a normal contract.
Yeah.
Lamar, so past the at this point, the roster could actually have some movement here in the next 5 to 7 days, because they want to be done before the draft happens. Again, we are less than a month away, 3 weeks and a couple days. So
I think both of these situations, that Lamar and Aaron Rodgers, they have to be done before the draft. If they don't get done before the draft, then I have very serious doubts that there will be a deal done at all for Aaron Rodgers. I believe he could retire, because the Packers will not get anywhere near the compensation that they want to get done. They need a pick this year. If it does not get done before the draft, I think this deal goes completely in the dirt and we see Aaron Rodgers retire. Lamar Jackson, I have no doubts that there's no way he's playing on this fucking tag. I don't think he won't show up. He won't sign the tag. He won't show up. And then he will force the hand of the Ravens, and something will happen. Somebody will have an injury or something will go on, and somebody will make a move and go and get Lamar Jackson, and they will pay him a salary. He might not get that long-term contract. He may get traded and then have to do a 1-year deal and then go out and make his money again. But if neither one of these things happen before the draft, it's very, very bad for the teams that are involved with it.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, the Ravens can still trade Lamar for not being on that tag. That is something that has been thrown around. However, it sounds like the Ravens want more than 2 first-round picks if you're just going to do a straight-up type of trade. Yeah. And for that to actually work out, he's got to sign his offer sheet with the Ravens, be on that franchise tag, and then the Ravens can trade him for something different than 2 first-round picks. But it sounds like they want more. That's the one spot where it could get interesting. If the Ravens are like, hey, we're just going to pay you the amount of money that the tag is, and he says he's not going to play for them, then that kind of forces their hand to trade him for whatever. Yeah. If he's not going to play for him. But then we're just going to be thrown right back into this circle next year, because he's going to be wanting another one of those gigantic contracts. And realistically, another year showing whether or not he can stay healthy could be good or bad for him. So
yeah, that is a dangerous game to play. Now, granted, that money on a tag is guaranteed.
Prescott,
yeah,
where he was up for that contract and then goes and blows his ankle out. It ended up working out because
Jerry did right by him for sure. But I don't know that is going to be the standard across the NFL.
Absolutely not.
We can say all sorts of bad things about Jerry Jones, but one thing that Jerry Jones did a really good job of was taking care of Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
I don't know that all owners are going to be willing to do that, though.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
So are we ready to start diving into some draft prospects? Because I got some notes here. I got some guys. We're going to talk offensive line and tight end. A lot of the big name guys we're going to talk about as, some of the best. But I got a lot of guys here in the later rounds that I like that I think could be late round steals. So where do you want to start? Tackle, guard, center, or tight end?
Let's work outside in for the line, and then we'll hit up tight end last. I'll say this. I think that offensive line, not the best draft. you are top heavy, like I feel really good about a lot of the first round guys for offensive line. And then after that, it really thins out. Now there will always be those guys that are the late round steals development, because you just see that very consistently with offensive linemen. Guys taking fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round in 2 or 3 years end up becoming starters, pro bowlers, things like that. It's pretty regular because these guys take some time to develop. Um, but in general, I feel like it's one of the weaker offensive line drafts that we've seen in a little bit, because you're not seeing as many guys who are really good in rounds like 2 through 4. There's some decent guys for sure, but also when you're talking interior offensive line, those guys just don't generally get looked at as first rounders as much anymore. So they fall into that second round category. And that's where we see some of those interior guys going first. And then after that, it thins out quite a bit. So with tackles, well, let's get some of the big names out here real quick. Guys that are consistently being mocked in the first round. All right. So you've got Paris Johnson Jr. Out of Ohio State. Probably going to be the first overall guy. The only competition to him as being first overall really is Peter Skoronski. Now, Skoronski, considered a tackle by most places that rate these players. However, the positional flexibility of him being able to play guard is really up there. A lot of people view him as a better guard in the NFL. The not comp that I've heard, but I've heard a lot of people say if you draft Skoronski to be a tackle, you're going to get a very good tackle. If you draft him to be a guard, you're talking about potential all-pro guard for the next 10 years.
I agree. He reminds me of an Ike Ekwonu from last year. A guy that everybody's talking about as a tackle. I think he profiles way better as a guard. He has just innate ability to get downhill and absolutely maul you if he gets his fucking hands on you. Good in pass protection as well. You kick him into the left guard, you're talking like a Joel Bitonio type that has some position flexibility and is an absolute dog. But I think he profiles better as a guard than he does a tackle.
I do as well. And I would say for Skoronski, just early on, keep an eye on him going pick number 9 to the Bears. He played at Northwestern. It's a hometown type of guy there. And the Bears, despite having as much cap room as they didn't build themselves along the offensive line as much as you would have expected, especially with Ryan Poles being their GM, being an offensive line-minded guy. Skoronski makes a lot of sense for them because that tackle to guard flexibility, they have a couple guys already who have flexibility along that line with Cody Whitehair being able to play guard and center. That it makes sense for him to go there. Yeah, they could go after a Paris Johnson or another one of those primarily tackles because they do need tackle help. But a guy like Skoronski helps you today, helps you tomorrow, allows flexibility to move around as you continue to build up that line. So I think that's a nice little fit there. Moving on, Broderick Jones out of Georgia, Anton Harrison out of OU, and DeJuan Jones. He's probably that kind of fringe guy who gets talked about going maybe late first. He's just a fucking monster there at Ohio State. Gigantic.
So when I got my notes here, and that's the first guy I got on the list is DeJuan Jones, because he is an absolutely enormous human being.
A mountain.
6'8", fucking 375 pounds, and is just dominant at that right tackle spot. I think that's where he's got to play in the NFL as well. I don't know that you can flip him sides to the left tackle. Now, your left tackles, you want long guys. You want guys with massive, wide bodies to, make it harder to bend the edge on those really premier pass rushers. But I don't know that his set is good enough to play against some of the really, really elite pass rushers and guys that can bend. I think you put him as a right tackle and you have a plug and play guy immediately dependent on your system. He is an absolute fucking mauler. He will bury you, and he is really good in pass pro as well. He played right tackle in college. I think he's got to stay there, but the sheer size of this human being is insane. You should not be able to be that large and run the 40 that he ran. Now, he didn't run a good 40 time. He ran a 5.35. But when you consider that is a goddamn refrigerator moving at that speed,
I'm
It's
not
insane.
concerned at all with the 40 time because I'm not drafting this guy to move down the field. I'm drafting him to fucking suck up bodies,
Yes.
everything within like 3 to 5 yards around that offensive line. He's not going out there on screen plays for me.
Yeah, oh no, I'm not running a screen to that side. However, what I will do is run a power play on the right side with a pull on guard because I have no problem with him down blocking or taking a guy straight up and just moving him out of the way.
Yeah. Now, moving on from that, there's a couple other names that kind of sometimes float into the first round. Not seeing it as much. We have Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse. This guy is kind of being comped to like a Trevor Penning type of mentality where he is just a fucking dog. He likes to get into it, but not as much as Trevor Penning was like, oh, this guy's just
constantly causing penalties. That he was penalized so much that they had to pull him off the fucking field. We talked about it when we were talking about Pennington that year. Like this guy is an absolute mauler. He is a mean cuss, but he's a walking hold. He will get you unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and that's exactly what happened. That's why I only played fucking 6 games.
Yep. And Penning, by the way, currently listed as a third string left tackle for the Saints on their depth chart. So not working out great for him. Now he had some injury stuff going on. And it's very early on in his career, but we'll see kind of how he transitions. I love that style of play. Like I love that mentality. It's just you got to know when to turn off.
I want controlled chaos, controlled aggression. Like I want you to be a mean cuss, but I need you to do it under control.
Which my favorite center in this draft is the type of guy that does that. He's known for that. So moving on from there, the only other guy that kind of gets some first round consideration, at least that I've been seeing, is Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. All of these tackles seem to, I mean, I don't want to say sure things, but people seem to be pretty confident in all of those names I just threw out as being guys that will be NFL level starters along the offensive line without much question, that they're all going to be pretty talented. So if you're looking for a tackle early on, you can find one pretty easy. After that, it gets a little bit more wishy-washy. So what are some of the names of guys that you have that interest you?
Okay, so I don't know how this guy's going to work out, but he is very interesting to me, and it's Cody Mock. Like this is a guy who is a walk-on.
Exactly where I was going to go.
Walk-on as a fucking tight end and did a lot of things at a smaller school. I mean, I think this kid fucking at one point was listed as a goddamn quarterback. He's incredibly athletic for a 6'5", 300-pound guy, but that's too small to play tackle in the NFL. 6'5", plenty of height, but 302 is way too lean. This guy is a very lean, polished athlete, and he has one big knock on him on his measurables. His arms are fucking wicked short. I cannot have a tackle with a short reach. I got to have somebody that can get out there, throw a punch, and knock a guy off route when he's trying to bend the edge. Cody doesn't have that. So he's listed as a tackle. This is another guy. I think you put 10 to 15 pounds on him and you slide him into a guard spot. You have an incredibly athletic guard who's able to pull and be in a zone style system where you can get him moving. I don't know if it's going to pan out, if he's going to be able to do that, but his athletic profile outside of the short arms is very intriguing, just not as a tackle for me.
Yeah. Now, North Dakota State University guys always kind of scare me a little bit because you can find a Carson Wentz out there, where a little bit of flash, but ends up being a fizzle. We've seen that with some of the tackles that have come out of North Dakota State University. I can't even remember their names right now, but there's been some guys that have gotten a little bit of hype. They go higher middle rounds, and then they end up just being Jags. Cody Mock, though, does look like he can make that transition to the NFL. He looked really good at the Senior Bowl, but he was taking a lot of snaps at guard and center. They had him out there playing some center. So you're looking at a guy that has
arms, man.
Yeah, he's got that interior line positional flexibility, which again, flexibility, especially once you get out of that first round for an offensive lineman, is a big thing for an NFL club because they're going to look at you as a raw piece of Play-Doh. How can we mold you to fit our team best, given your skill sets and your capabilities? Cody's is his speed, like you said, came in to NDSU as a tight end. I believe it was high school that he had played some quarterback, and they were able to pack the weight on him, get him playing offensive line. And now he's at that 302-pound range, and you put a couple more pounds on him and get him familiarized with that interior line. I don't think that he'll be a factor this year.
No, I don't
But
think you can.
2-3
I
years
don't
down
think
the
you can
line,
actually expect to draft this kid any earlier than maybe the 5th as a project to get him a couple of years in an NFL weight room and get some weight on him.
well, because this offensive line group is a little bit weaker once you get past those first round guys, he's projected to be more of a 3rd round pick.
That's so
With
high
some
for
people
him.
even thinking possibly into the 2nd.
That is
way
too
high
high
for me, but it is because of the dearth of talent that he has a little bit more upside that people are looking for. But he's going to be a good move guy, good zone team. He needs to work on his pass protection a little bit, but the guy's quick for his size because he's used to having been.
He's an athlete, man. I mean, he was an athlete. So.
All right, so Cody Mock, yep, he's one of the guys that I had on my list as someone to watch. Who else do you got?
So I got Tyler Steen out of Alabama. This is another guy that I like. I love his initial quickness. He's fun to watch. He moves really well. He'll be a good right tackle in the league, but I don't think, once again, this is another guy with shorter arms. I don't think he profiles really well as a left tackle. I think you can line this guy up at a right tackle, though. Given his ability to move, he slides perfectly into any kind of zone scheme system as well. And he just got done playing at Alabama. I mean, you can say what you want. Some guys from Alabama, they get a lot of hype because of where they play. This kid can play. I just don't know that I have him anywhere other than a right tackle spot. And if I'm having him at a right tackle spot, I'm expecting this guy to do a lot of run blocking and some good pass blocking, but not necessarily against your premier pass rushers. So I like him. Obviously, a lot of room to grow and build, but his arms are longer than Cody Mock's, but not by a ton. So I could see maybe a slide in, but right tackle is where I would profile this guy.
Yeah, to me, his natural fit in the NFL is going to be right tackle, but still, I see him as not even being necessarily a starter level right tackle. He is going to be one of those utility swing tackles to me in the NFL. Having played there at Alabama is going to benefit him a lot. He's going to go from relatively professional system into the pros, knowing how to be a pro and knowing how to put in the work. And Alabama obviously is just constantly successful, so he understands how to be successful and how to win, and that's going to help him with his development. But yeah, to me, I don't see him as being a sure thing starter in the NFL. I think that he will find a good spot, though, as a primary backup on an NFL team.
All right.
And that's basically the guys that I have for tackle as well. Those two guys.
So I got one more name. I got one more name that I really, really like. And this guy is, I think, better than the last guy we just talked about, but is not going to get the shine. When you go to an Alabama, people are going to know who the fuck you are. But if you go to a small school and then you show up at Senior Bowl week and you have a really good week and you show that you have some decent testing numbers, people are going to be like, oh, let's take a look at this kid. Nick Saldiveri. Nick Saldiveri, ODU, baby. I like this kid.
Old Dominion has a lot of decent prospects for the first time in a long time. I don't know if it's just because their old quarterback's doing so well in the XFL, but
I don't know, man. But I can tell you that I like Nick Saldiveri, small school guy, like I said, but had a really good showing at Senior Bowl week, man. Like held his own. Solid testing numbers. Right tackle for sure for me, though. Kent is not going to be a left tackle, but he's good in the run game. Not too bad in the pass game. He's going to need some polish there, but this is a guy that if I'm drafting him because he could be a swing tackle, maybe start at right tackle, much better going forward than he is in his pass pro. I think this guy is somebody that can grow into being a starter level player that people are going to be able to get a steal in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Old Dominion, they had a very good year for Old Dominion. They're not doing a whole bunch. And that is Ben DiNucci. Ben DiNucci's a quarterback.
DiNucci.
The old Dominion quarterback, Cowboys guy. He's kind of been tearing it up there in the XFL so far.
Well, they need some quarterback play.
Yep. All right. Ready to move on to the guards?
I'm ready to move on to guards. Yes.
All right. So, in addition to those tackles that we talked about that could possibly transition into an interior spot with the guards, we have basically two guys that I see getting mocked quite a bit. First, second round. They're falling more so into the second round, but I think that at least one, if not both of them, have first round talent, and that's Osiris Torrance out of Florida and Steve Avila out of TCU. I really love both of them. Osiris Torrance is another one of those mammoth type of men. Now he's 330, 6'5". You don't necessarily think mammoth size at 330 for that, but he just looks like a fucking mound out there.
Wide body, man. He is a wide body.
Very much so. And he is he's going to be really solid. He's my favorite guard in the draft. But Steve Avila ain't that far behind him. I do like Avila as well, out of TCU. Both of those guys should be really solid, and they're probably going to go relatively early in the second round, if not sneak into the first round. If a team at the back end really feels good about needing a guard and wanting one of these guys, they'll go after him. I think Osiris Torrance makes a lot of sense to be able to make it there into the first round. After that, though, there are a couple names here that I do like as mid-round guys. I like the developmental guys a little bit more out of this guard group. One of them, they'll bring up Andrew Voorhees. I actually thought that, I liked a lot of what I saw from this guy. Unfortunately, his draft stock is really going to be hurt because he ended up getting hurt there at the combine, and still was a fucking dude and went out there after, fucking his knee up and basically losing his season. Threw up an amazing bench.
Yeah, dog. I'll take a guy like that any day. Somebody you go to the combine to compete. That's exactly. He competed, he got hurt, but he decided, I am not done competing. I'm going to go do the things that I can do. And he could go out there and bench. I love that, especially from an interior offensive lineman. Give me a fucking dog who's ready to go compete. I like that about him.
I mean, for anyone watching that has not done a true bench press or really lifted for heavy weight, having your feet on the ground, you're not thinking a whole lot about it because it's like upper body stuff, right? But if you're only having 1 foot planted, truly planted, you're engaging your core in a completely different way, which is just pulling the muscles a different way. It makes it a lot more difficult.
Yes.
Try doing it with no feet on the ground. It's a different game. So for him to go out there and throw up the numbers that he did on the bench with only 1 foot planted, this dude's a fucking badass. I liked him before he got hurt. I like him even more now. Unfortunately, that injury is going to drop him because you are not getting to play him this year. And this is a guy that could have seen potentially some play this year on maybe a team that is really lacking at guard.
I had him as a second, third round grade type guy. Could come in and contribute. I don't know about being an immediate starter, but could contribute to a team with depth issues on the offensive line. The injury is a massive blow. You're not going to get him at all this year. So that's going to drop his stock down 4th, 5th, 6th round.
Like you said, I wouldn't want him to go and start this year, but again, on a depth needy team, I could have seen him starting. Yes, this is going to drop him in the draft, but it could actually be a good thing for him because now a team that is willing to take the time with him and maybe isn't in a bad of a spot, they can take him and he can be seen a little bit more as that project, and it can really develop him well, and it might work out better for him in the long run because there's not going to be all those expectations of a second, third round pick starting within a year or two, where now it's like, hey, the guy needs some time to rehab and develop and learn our system. It'll give him some time to become really good at his craft there in the NFL. Chandler Paula.
Yeah, so that's a guy on my list. But before we do that, I just want to go back. I want to talk about Osiris Torrance real quick. The kid is one of the best guard prospects that we've seen in quite some time. He's going to be really good for a team. Guards just don't typically get drafted in the first round. I think he has first round talent. I just don't know that he'll go that high because it's an interior line spot. But this kid's going to be really good. He's a day one starter, no matter who drafts him. I mean, unless you draft him onto one of the best offensive lines in all of football, this kid's a day one starter.
Yeah. It was him and Anthony Richardson out there on that Florida offense. They were the two bright shining stars. There's not a whole lot else that Osiris Torrance can get better at.
Yeah.
Like he's just got to go play in the NFL system. The guy's got strength for days. He's gonna
All
be
right,
great.
so let's switch over to Chandler Zavala, a guy that I got some notes on, a guy that I like, strong. He's violent in the run game on his initial pop, but every once in a while will not maintain that block. That is something that I would like to see a little bit more because he doesn't maintain, he doesn't bury people. He doesn't necessarily always finish his blocks, but that initial pop, he is going to smack you in the mouth. He's pretty damn strong, but the thing that's crazy about this guy, he's kind of got shorter arms for an offensive lineman, but his wingspan is in the upper, like, I think 80 percentile, which means this is a wide body, big, thick kid. I would love to see a little bit more arm length, but my goodness, he is a big, wide guy to try to get around. I think that he could play quite a bit in the NFL. I don't know if he starts immediately, but I think he could work his way in there. And then if he gets his hand placement under control, if he can find a way to leverage with those slightly shorter arms, I think this kid could be really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think that he is there. There's a drop off after what Voorhees was, and Zavala starts off that kind of next rung of guys. He'll get taken probably somewhere around the third or the fourth. I feel like in a traditional class, he's probably more of a fifth round project, and that's where a lot of these guys I'm seeing as more fifth and later round guys. Some of them will get advanced a little bit further in this draft, though, higher up towards the third round. Who else do you got other than Zavala out there?
So I got another small school guy, man. When I started doing my dive on the offensive line, these guys we already knew, so I wanted to get to know some of these kids that I didn't know. Now, finding any kind of tape on this guy was incredibly hard. I had to go and try to track down some Senior Bowl clips. But McClendon Curtis out of Chattanooga, I like this kid. He is a large human being. He's got insane measurable numbers, and everybody who interviewed this kid absolutely loved him. Played a lot of tackle in college, but I think he profiles better as a guard. You slide him inside, and I think he could be a contributor early as well. And another small school guy, he's probably not going to get the shine. He's going to fall later down. This could be another late round steal for a team either who is in need of some depth or they just don't have a guard that they trust. Because I think you can slide. He could play on either side, right or left. He's kind of got that dog in him. When you play at one of those small schools, you have to. When you go play the big boys, you got to show up and let them know that you're there to fucking play. And McClendon Curtis is one of those guys.
Yeah, he definitely played. I mean, he's 6'6", so he had that height that you're kind of looking for to play tackle, especially at a smaller school. 6'6" is definitely like above the bar to play tackle there. But that size, he doesn't do great as a pass protector. His feet aren't very good for that left tackle spot that he was playing in college. So a transition into guard makes a lot more sense. Pass protection still is a little bit of an issue for him, but with development and whatnot, like he would lose engagement with guys at the tackle spot. Guard, it's easier to maintain that engagement because things are clustered a lot more in there in the interior. But with some development, he could find himself as a good backup level guard, someone that you're not going to feel terrible about having to play for a game or two here or there. And he did make Bruce Feldman's freaks list coming out of high school because the guy is an athletic freak, despite going to a small school.
So that's the last guard guy that I got. I loved watching. I like watching all of the small school guys show up to Senior Bowl week and all of those different bowls and show out because nobody's watching these guys for the most part throughout the year.
Yeah,
you get a couple of guys, a couple of scouts that are like, okay, so I found this gem. We always see that Belichick will he'll go do a private workout at a fucking D3 school or something, and he'll come back with a gem. And so I'm starting to kind of hone more of especially the offensive line, because like you said, this is not a super top heavy class. The depth, I think, can be there. It's just, there's a lot of middle round guys that could be depth, or they could maybe find their way into being average level starters. So when you're looking at these guys, look for physical traits. Like, look for guys that you can grow and groom. You get a guy out of a Chattanooga or an Old Dominion who maybe don't have the level of coaching, and then you put them in a system where they're getting pro level coaching, you could see a big boon in their production.
Yep. A couple of guys for me as my internet.
Yeah. Internet taking a big old dumper.
Jared Patterson, Jackson Kirkland, and Antonio Mafi. All guys that I think could be solid going forward, but those are 5th, 6th, 7th round guys.
Yeah. All right. Nobody else at guard for you?
Nope, that's it.
All right. So let's move on to the centers. So I did not do a lot of extra dive. I did go take another look at a guy that I said I would go look at. I did a little guest spot with Jacob Roach on their show, talked about some center prospects. So let's get into the main guys, because I know the guy that you are in love with is the best center in this draft.
Yeah, easily. I love me some center play, and I love it from John Michael Schmitz. He's my man.
Yeah.
Out of Minnesota. That just helps a little bit. Regardless of the school, I'm all about JMS, though. Guy's a dog.
Yeah, he is a dog. He's one of the better center prospects we've seen over the last couple of years. Now, we've had some really, really good ones, like a Tyler Linderbaum. Didn't necessarily have the amount of success people were expecting. You get a Creed Humphreys that goes in the 2nd round. I think John Michael Schmitz is on a similar level to that. I'm not going to say he's Creed Humphreys because that is the gold standard of center play in the NFL right now, but he has some of those physical abilities and is an absolute fucking dog. Will maul you.
I think that he has the potential to step in and within 2 to 3 years being a top 5 center, no problem. That's how confident I feel about JMS as a prospect. I feel like there aren't very many can't miss guys out there. JMS to me feels like one of those more can't miss type of guys. I feel like he's very akin to that the Colts guard that came out a couple years ago. I can't think of his name
Quentin
right
Nelson?
now. Yeah, I feel like he's that type of a prospect as a center. The stuff that we saw from Senior Bowl, he even played a little bit of guard there. He can play any 3 of those interior positions. His best is going to be, you're talking all pro level potential center play and very, very good starter at a guard spot if you need him to. So if you are a center needy team, definitely the North Star to probably shoot for in this class. But if you need interior help with the potential need of a center going forward at some point in time, you're going to feel great about taking JMS. He is one of those guys that is a dog, turns it on. He pushes the rest of his guys to get better around him. He was like the core heart of that offensive line there at University of Minnesota. So I'm really excited to watch him. I wish so bad that we are going to be in a position to get him, because he's right now average mock drafts getting taken around pick 50. And I've actually seen quite a few mocks recently with him jumping into the 1st round for a center needy team, someone like the Giants or the Commanders. Now, both those teams are a little bit higher than you'd like to see a center taken, but definitely pick 20 and back. I'm starting to see a little bit more, especially if any of those teams trade back, of him actually making it into the 1st round sometimes, because this 1st round really is like good players up to pick 20 and then pick 20 to pick 70. It's kind of like take your flavor. The 1st round talent kind of drops off a little bit. JMS has 1st round talent. It's just the value position at center. So if you're wanting to get one of those guys that you can not have to worry about, feel really good, he's out there, he's available. And yeah, I would love to see him on my Vikings. Just it's probably not going to happen because we don't have the 2nd round pick for it.
Yeah. All right. So another guy, you just talked about him as a guard prospect. I like him as a guard or a center prospect, and that's Steve Avila. He's got a mean streak. He's helped his team move into a position that nobody thought TCU would be in the national championship game. I really like his ability, and the position flexibility makes him even more intriguing. He can slide over into a center spot. He could play a guard on either side. In my opinion, he could probably play guard. So I like Steve Avila, and I like some of the things that you were saying earlier. Anything else you want to hit on Steve Avila?
I'm on board with that too. Yeah, Avila, like he's primarily a guard to me, but he does have that center flexibility. He did show center play in college. So again, if you need a guard, but you need some center play right now, he's one of those guys that you can feel really good about taking and allowing him to move throughout his career until he gets that locked in set position going forward.
All right.
Some of the other centers, though, I think the next top two guys that mostly get talked about are Luke Whippler and Joe Tippmann.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not as high on Whippler as some people are. Like some agencies
I'm
have
very
Whippler rated
wishy-washy,
higher than JMS, which I just don't fucking get.
That's
Not
that
being a
should not
homer.
ever be a thing. Listen, Luke Whippler is a good player, but he is a good player. He's not great at anything. He's good at a lot of things. He is a guy that you can plug in. He will probably do his job almost on every single play, but is that a guy that if I need a yard, I'm going to trust Luke Whippler to move somebody and I'm going to run right behind him? No, it's not. Like he just does the normal average things. He's an average starter in the NFL, but that's great for a lot of teams, but you don't draft him in the second round or the third round. This is a guy you take fourth, fifth round. But I think because he is one of those higher rated prospects at the center spot, he will probably move up into a third round.
Yeah. And the next guy, Joe Tippmann, he's one that I like a lot more. He's my second guy in this class. I've seen him going in the second. Some people have him up there right next to JMS. He's a different type of player to me. When I look at him, I mean, he's 6'6", 313.
He's too goddamn tall to be a center.
He looks smaller to me than that, though. And I think it is because of the height stretching him out a little bit. Now, offensive lines, interior offensive lines have gotten a little bit smaller recently to be able to be more mobile and movement based. And he fits into that. His athleticism, his speed is fantastic for that. He also played a little bit of guard in college, only 11 games, but I think that he has that flexibility where he could, he's primarily a center, but if you want a good guard with movement, Tippmann could possibly fit in that role as well. I just want to see like another 10, 15 pounds on him at least. Like, just to me, he looks a little bit too lean right now, but his movement abilities, especially if you have more of a slight of frame offensive line that is on the move a lot, he could fit really good in your system. He's not a stagnant guy that is just an anchor there in the middle. He's going to be getting out there on screen plays, on outside runs, things like that.
All right. So a guy for me that I still really like is Oluwatimi.
Oluwatimi.
I like this kid, man. I think he is going to be a pretty goddamn decent NFL player. I don't know that he ever transitions into being a top center, but this is a guy that I think that can come in and compete for a spot right away. I don't know if he will win it, but I mean, you got to love the intangibles. I mean, this kid is good as a pass protector, good in the run. I don't know that everybody's as high on him as I am. I think people are worried that he just maybe doesn't finish. But I think he's going to be fine. He's going to get you in a stalemate 99% of the time. I don't need everybody to get a pancake. I need somebody who's going to be consistent. That's kind of like a Luke Whippler. Like a Luke Whippler is a guy that I consider in the same vein as Oluwatimi. They are good prospects. They will be a guy that you can put in there and they're going to be fine, but they're not going to give you anything special. And I can get an Oluwatimi much later than I expect Luke Whippler to go in this draft.
Yeah. I actually have Olusegun Oluwatimi higher than Whippler, just barely, just a shade better, but they're in the same class to me. And you're right, Whippler's going to go a lot higher. Ole's going 5th round in a lot of mock drafts right now.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you don't think people are as high on him as we are. I'm high on him too. I like him. I think that he should be more of a 4th, maybe back into the 3rd round type of guy who could be going in the 5th, but we don't know what NFL GMs, especially later on with those draft picks, are really feeling. So that's his mock draft stuff. So maybe he does end up going higher. Like I said, I do like him better than a Whippler, not by a ton, but I had them there in the same vein. And I like what he can do out there. And in worst case, again, I think that he is a very solid backup center and could develop into a average, above average starting center.
Yeah. All right. So one other guy. Now, This is a guy I don't love, but I got to talk about him because I told Jacob that I was going to go back and take a look because this is a guy that Jacob Roach really liked. And Jacob, I love you. Cannot wait to have you back on the show. But this is a guy I cannot necessarily get behind, and that's a Logan Forsythe. I don't see it there.
Logan or
He's
Alex
not as
Forsythe?
it is Alex Forsythe, the center from Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
He's not very athletic. He doesn't do anything special to me. He played in a system at Oregon where they're running a lot of stretch plays, but he panics and on his reach blocks and if a guy's not right fucking in front of him, he's gonna struggle. Some people really, really like this kid as a late round prospect. I just don't know that I'm there. And it definitely doesn't profile as a guy that I want on the Browns based on the type of system that we run with the zone. Now, that could obviously change. We're talking about possible a lot more 4 and 5 wide receiver sets with Deshaun Watson taking more of a ownership of the offense and moving off a little bit from Nick Chubb. I don't love the talk of that either, but this just doesn't fit with the Browns that I've seen over the last couple of years. Maybe you can get this guy in a system where it's, 70% fucking shotgun snaps and he could be okay like an Oregon is going to run. But I just don't see him being a really good pro style offense type of center.
Yeah, he's kind of limited. He'll reach a lot. Like he wants those defenders to come to him a little bit more. And if they're not, it gets him off of his base. He loses his balance. He's better in a phone booth than he is pulling or doing any of that sort of stuff. Now, we're talking about guys that, like I said, Oluwatimi's going in 5th round in mocks and stuff like that. The next couple names I'm going to throw out, including Forsythe, these are all 6th, 7th round, or possibly UDFA guys, where at that value range, I'm okay with bringing them in and seeing if we can develop something, because you're not going to find guys this late without issues. So Alex Forsythe, I'm not high on him, but I do like him as a developmental type of prospect there in like a 6th or 7th round. I'm also liking, as those developmental type of guys, Juice Scruggs out of Penn State, Ricky Stromberg. And I like Stromberg a little bit more. I mean, his actual Stromberg pass grades and stuff like that, pass blocking and run blocking were pretty good there at Arkansas. I don't know that I see the same sort of production in the NFL, for the reasons that, we kind of talked about. These guys all have their dings and stuff like that. He's an okay athlete, but you do not want him like pulling. If you try to put him in like a guard spot or something like that, he doesn't have that sort of athleticism. And he has a good initial punch, but then just kind of will stop sometimes after that first punch and allow the defender to kind of take over him. He has a nasty disposition though, so that's something that hopefully you could coach into him to get that good first punch and then keep delivering that hit and that engagement. But again, these are guys that they're going to have their issues here and there, and it just is going to be up to a good offensive line coach to really develop some of these traits out of them. But yeah, 6th, 7th round guys that I wouldn't be opposed to taking.
Yeah, Stromberg is a guy that I did a little bit of profile on. I like him. He's a very, very late round guy. And a lot of these other guys, man, I see some of these kids that they're a little too lean to play at the NFL level. Like a Brett Nylon has some ability, just too small for me. I want my center. He's got to be at least 300 pounds. He's got to be at least 300 pounds, because you're dealing with fucking, 0 and 1 techniques a lot. And those boys are big. They are quick. And I need you to have a little bit of ass to you. Maybe.
Well, I saw it recently.
I'm being overly biased to the thickness here.
Sure, but I saw it recently with Garrett Bradbury for the Vikings. The guy was, barely 300 pounds. And for as talented as he was in college and good at movement and stuff like that, when you go up against some of those big nasties on the interior defensive line, it is not a proposition of like, am I talented or not? It is just a pure physics, mass versus no mass type thing. So he can only do so much, and you have to provide him help from a chipping guard and things like that. and you want a center that again can kind of be that anchor there in the
I just
middle.
need one. I just need you to take one guy. That's it. I don't need you to do a ton of things special unless you are incredibly athletic. But I need you to take your one guy and I need you to stalemate him every single time. I cannot get it. If you give me interior pressure and I don't give a fuck what play you're running, inside run, outside run, pass play, does not matter. Interior pressure kills all plays in the NFL. So if you cannot hold up against a big body like that, I don't know that you can play in the NFL.
Mhm. All right. Any other offensive linemen that you want to talk about before we move on to the sleight of frame offensive linemen who like to catch balls known as tight ends?
No, I am good on the offensive line.
All righty. Well, moving on to tight ends. This is an interesting draft class for tight ends.
Yeah,
because
so I tried to find some gems, and I don't think that we have any late round gems here. Maybe one.
I've got.
This is a very top heavy group. There's a lot of guys that are okay.
And I don't know that he's a late round gem, but he's late round interesting.
Okay.
All right. But this is so we talk about strengths of classes, whether they're good or not. With tight end, it's definitely different because tight ends aren't perceived as like if you're talking about a good tight end class, you have one or two guys that are like, oh, these are interesting. And then after that, it's kind of a lot of blocking tight ends and things like that. Mm-hmm. This draft, you have arguably 5 guys that could be going in the first 2 rounds, all with different traits and different things that you like about them for different reasons.
There's only one guy in this class that I think has an all-around skill, but I don't know if he can hold up to the hype.
The hype, maybe not. Yeah. But it is an interesting. So for that reason, this is a strong tight end class as far as the depth. Now, again, you're going to get through the first 2, maybe 3 rounds, and then just see it drop off a cliff. But that is way better than you're going to see from most tight end draft classes. So the top guys here in no specific order, because some people have them rated differently depending on what you need for your team. And I'm actually going to say top 4 guys. You have Dalton Kincaid, who is not much of like because of his size, not much of a blocker. He's definitely more of your Y. He's 6'3", 246, but the guy is a great receiver. You have Michael Mayer, who I believe is that guy that you consider that more all-around type of prospect.
Correct.
And I don't like him as much as a receiver, but as a all-around prospect, pretty good. And I think the reason why he's not going to get as much flash and flare is because his receiving stats aren't going to be as good as like a Dalton Kincaid.
Right.
All right. You have Luke Musgrave. All right. So again, a little bit more receiver, taller dude. Interesting prospect, not refined at all because, you know, he wasn't playing at the top notch level. But he's got the tools to be a really good pass catcher, and you can try to develop that pass blocking because he's 6'6", 253, so he's a little bit of a bigger guy. And then for me, that guy that's fringed, I've been seeing him mocked a lot more in the first round, way higher than I expected on some of these, higher than all those other 3 guys. Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Big boy.
You named 3 guys on the list that I have profiles on, and I got one more outside of those guys that you just named.
So the other guy that kind of gets mocked in there a little bit is Sam Laporta.
That's my other guy that I want to talk about.
And then I've got another ODU guy.
Okay. You went more ODU. All right. So let's break down. So for me, I think Michael Mayer is probably the best all-around tight end of this group. So I want to get your take because you're not necessarily as high on him as some other people are. I think this kid is really good, but I don't know that he does anything great.
I think I really do like Michael Mayer. I think he's going to be a very solid NFL player. But if you're looking for one of those tight ends that does it all and then does it at an elite level, you know, we're talking about, you know, your Ravens tight end. You're talking about your Chiefs tight end. Those guys that are really good at all those things.
Your 49ers tight end who is just a dog in the blocking. Like we don't have one of those guys.
He's like that, just a step below to me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a step below because he's not going to put up the receiving stats that those guys will. But being able to do everything else, great. I mean, he's just going to be a solid set piece along your offense. And that's not something to shake a stick at, obviously. No. I like Mayer a lot. I like what he did in college.
I mean,
here, his
he
last year,
blocks really well. He catches the ball well. He runs good routes, not great routes.
decent with contested catches.
Yep, good
His
with
last
contested
year,
catches. You can play him in line. You can play him at the Y. He's got some position versatility. But I believe that the expectations for this kid are going to be massive, considering the shine that he has had since he was a high schooler. Like, this
Yeah.
was one of the top rated prospects coming out of high school. Just an unbelievable tight end prospect, and people have been waiting for this kid for years to make it to the NFL. So
part
the
of that
expectations.
shine
Go ahead.
is that he's a golden domer,
Yep.
which is tons of good tight ends come out of Notre Dame. And he's another one of those in a long list of good tight ends that are coming out of Notre Dame. It's just, you're not going to see the splashiness. I mean, the offensive league that we are in right now is predicated on big splashy receiving plays. You don't pay attention to the offensive lineman or the guys blocking as much because it's just people aren't attuned to it. They like to see the guy with the ball in their hands. Mayer's going to get the ball. He's just not going to get it as much as some of those other big name tight ends.
And I don't know that he's going to be able to do much with it after the catch.
Yeah.
Does not have good long speed or anything like that. Like a Travis Kelce, if you give Travis Kelce a couple yards of separation, Travis Kelce can run away from some safety still.
Yeah.
As can a George Kittle and a Mark Andrews. Those guys have a little bit of extra juice to them, but I don't know that Mayer has that.
Yeah. And I think he profiles closer to a Kittle and a Mark Andrews as far as like being able to block and do everything else. It's just those guys, their receiving acumen is going to be that much higher. Now, Mayer, again, not a slouch in college with the receiving. He had 358 pass snaps this year. 143 of them in line, 161 in the slot. So they actually moved him offline a little bit more. 67 receptions for 809 yards and 9 touchdowns. The guy's not a slouch as far as a receiver, but his stats aren't going to be wildly inflated like more of a receiving, wide tight end.
Like a guy we're going to probably talk about immediately after
other
this.
things. Well, I assume that would be Dalton Kincaid.
It would be. So listen, I like Mayer. I just don't know that he is going to be this next coming of a Gronk or a George Kittle or any of those types of guys. To me, and this is no disrespect to Mayer, and it's definitely no disrespect to the guy I'm about to say, but he is Pat Freiermuth. He is a very solid tight end. He can go and catch passes. He can block. He runs decent routes, but not great routes. Like, he looks so much like a Pat Freiermuth to me. But I think any team in the NFL is going to be like, I will take Pat Freiermuth on my team for sure. He's a starting level tight end and he can do really good things. But the expectations on Mayer are so high considering all the background on this kid.
Yeah. And I think Freiermuth is a pretty decent comp to him. As another Golden Domer, he's going to be a solid tight end in the league. But yeah, Dalton Kincaid, that's the one that we kind of want to go to. He's a lot more of that flash, that flare in this draft. Yeah. I see him getting mocked all the times early to the Packers because they need a tight end, and that's not one that I feel great about because I don't want to be going up against him. I don't want them to have this sort of a solid receiving tight end. This last year, he had 70 catches, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. So if you look at those stats compared to a Mayer, there's not that different, but you can just see he's a different type of receiver. He is a receiving tight end. His run block grades, so, not what you'd expect from more of that inline blocking tight end. And his frame isn't of that. His frame is as a receiver. And he looks pretty special doing it. So this is definitely the guy that if you're looking for that more explosive receiving big body guy, is what you want to go for. He's getting mocked in the middle of the pick 50 range.
You were starting to break up. He's getting mocked where, you said?
Right in the first.
Okay, end of the first. So I like Dalton Kincaid, but like you said, this guy is purely a pass catcher. There's not a good run blocker at all, but he is a really, really good pass catcher because this guy runs phenomenal fucking routes. He runs wide receiver routes. He runs tight end routes. He can run the entire route tree from multiple positions. He's got incredibly soft hands. He just can't block. So if you're bringing in a Dalton Kincaid, it's to be a pass catcher. which we have seen guys who can be incredibly special. Like that's your Travis Kelce's, your fucking Darren Wallers, who you do not necessarily want blocking people, but will absolutely go out, win a route, get to the sticks, and can actually make some things happen after the catch as well.
Yeah, that's to me. You are looking just for that bigger body, a little bit more of a receiving threat guy. He's going to be special, and that was his middle of the first round is more so where I'm seeing him go. Every once in a while, if someone again you see them have that different flavor, different want from a tight end, you'll see a guy sneak up above him in like a Darnell Washington, and Kincaid will fall towards the back end of the first. We're seeing anywhere from 2 to 3 tight ends being taken in the first round right now. So it's a decent mix of whatever your team wants or needs to be their identity at tight end going forward. You kind of have that in this draft. After them, though, that number 3 guy, Luke Musgrave, I feel like he is a lot more of what a Kincaid is, just on a smaller scale. Now, you're going a lot more off potential. He didn't play very much this year, only 2 games, only had 1 touchdown, 11 catches for a little 169 yards. So not as special because he was injured, but his 2021 looked a lot better and he was on a good progression track. I'm not as high on him as some places are. I honestly view him as, I have Darnell Washington higher.
Me too.
But Musgrave for a long time was getting talked about as a potential first round pick. He's probably still going in the second in most mock drafts. I think that he's a 3rd rounder personally. He just got a little bit too much hype on the potential, but he is a lot more of that receiving style tight end. Runs a 4.61.
I agree with you on the comp a little bit to Kincaid. They're very much similar in the same vein. Now, Kincaid is a little bit smaller than a Luke Musgrave, 6'6", 250, and Dalton Kincaid is 6'4", 245. Musgrove runs a little bit better, but a big separation for me is the route running. Like if I have a guy that can't necessarily block like a Kincaid, I want somebody that goes out and just wins a route. Musgrove can go out, he'll win some 50-50 balls, but he's not going to necessarily separate as well as somebody like a Kincaid. So, and you guys have heard me talk over the last couple of weeks, especially when we were breaking down receiver. I don't need a guy who runs a 4.1 and just can do it in a straight line. I want somebody who separates and wins their routes, and that's where I'm going to go with a Kincaid much more than I would go with a Musgrove. And it's also why I like Darnell Washington more than I like a Musgrove, because they're similar. Washington's not going to necessarily win as many of the routes like we're going to see from a Kincaid, but the 50-50 ball chances with a Darnell Washington, I think, are way better than they are with a Luke Musgrove.
Oh yeah, that's Darnell Washington is a very big tight end as well. He's 6'6",
a large fucking man,
264. I believe at least listed as 6'6" on PFF, but I thought he came into the combine at 6'8".
I think they got him at 6'7".
He's a big dude, and that when you're talking about that sort of a height, that's great for red zone. He is a better blocker as well. 81.3 run block grade as a tight end for PFF, but again, not necessarily a slouch when it comes to receiving. So Georgia Bulldogs, phenomenal team. The ball is going to get spread out a lot more. So even if you are good as a tight end on that team, you're going to see less targets. And he only saw 43 targets this last year, had 28 receptions for 454 yards. That's still 16.2 yards per reception.
Big play threat, man. Big play threat. When you are that fucking big, you run that well, and you can jump and win 50-50 balls, you're going to be a big play threat. I love this kid as a red zone target. Love him because of his chances to win 50-50 balls. He's actually a pretty goddamn good run blocker, too. I believe he has the ability to grow into being the best tight end in this group.
And that's why I'm saying I've seen him mocked as the first tight end going also to the Packers, but I've seen him getting drafted very high because, again, he was on a Georgia team with a lot of talent. The ball's getting spread other places, but You're talking about a guy that is very good as a blocker. I'm not concerned about him with his size being a blocker, but I think he was just underutilized because there were so many more options on that team where you're not seeing his skill set as much, or you're not seeing him jump off the stat page, but he has that ability to be a very solid receiving tight end. And he kind of blew it up at the combine. He looked fantastic. He made some really nice catches out there in the receiving drills, and that opened up a lot of people's eyes. I'm sure the scouts already knew, but it opened up a lot of other people's eyes to being like, hey, maybe this guy is actually the best tight end in this class, or will end up being the best tight end in this class.
Listen, when you got a guy who is a good run blocker, who is that big and can win 50-50 balls, that is a guy you never have to worry about taking off the field in short yardage situations or down in the red zone. You don't have to bring in a fucking blocking tight end to replace him or to help him. He can do both, which is going to make him very, very dangerous in the red zone. I like this kid a lot, and he ran so much faster than I expected.
Yeah. He's going to be fun, and I think a lot of people have him listed as like their third, fourth, or fifth best tight end. We could see him go as the top tight end overall for a team that really falls in love with him. All right, that other guy that's in the mix there, Sam Laporta out of Iowa. He's an interesting one. I almost view him, so he's 6'3", 245. I almost view him a little bit more as one of those H-backs. I see Dallas Clark when I see him.
Yep.
All right, so smaller tight end, even though he kind of fits the size profile that we're talking about with like Kincaid, but he's a good seam threat. This guy had 20 broken tackles this past season as a receiving tight end. Now, if the ball's outside of his frame, he's going to have a little more difficulty catching it. He's not that sort of a pure receiver. He's not going to win contested catches as much, but once you get the ball in his hands, he's a lot more dynamic. He's going to get you extra yak yards. And that makes him a lot of fun to watch. He's a different type of tight end, though. Like I said, I view him as more of an H-back. He's that guy that I want to see move around a little bit more motion. He doesn't have a great run block grade or anything like that, so he's not your blocking type of guy. He is just a receiving threat, but he's a different type of receiving threat. He's not your red zone or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to read you the notes that I got here. Sam Laporta is the ultimate safety blanket. This kid catches everything and catches it at the sticks because he's an unbelievable route runner. He's got excellent hands, and he's super smart. He always knows where the sticks are, and he has the ability to make plays after the catch, kind of like you just alluded to. But my last little line here is this kid cannot block, so this is not Kittle 2.0. This is not another kid coming out of Iowa who can block and do all of those things. He has the receiving aspects of what you can hope for out of a George Kittle, but he cannot fucking block.
Yep.
I like him as you're saying an H-back, a Dallas Clark type. I agree, man. This kid could be a really good weapon as a number 2 tight end, as your pass catching tight end if you have a more inline guy. But I don't see him profiling as just like this guy who's going to grow into this awesome run blocker or a pass blocker if you decide to keep him in. But I love his ability to catch the ball and his ability to run routes.
All right. And then that last guy that I have that is a little bit more the sleeper that some people are a little bit higher on is more because he's toolsy. He has some of these elite testing scores. That's Zach Kuntz out of ODU. Again, small school. You're not going to see him out there catching tons of balls and stuff like that because it's just not their style of play. As a run blocker, he showed a decent run block grade, but the guy has got the size that you want, 6'7", 255. But really what started to open up some people's eyes was his combine performance. 4.55 in the 40-yard dash at 6'7", pretty damn good. A 1.57 split for 10 yards, pretty damn good. So he's got some of that athleticism that you would expect to see from a guy a couple inches shorter than him. But he's 6'7", putting that up there. If you're able to develop that, again, this is a guy that's going to go 5th to 7th round probably. But a couple years, he might become like a good number 2 or something like that. This the speed that he has, and he's not going to be a complete liability as a blocker. So that's, again, late round guy. They're going to have knocks on him. He did not have that production in college. I believe he only had this last year, 144 yards on 12 catches, but 2 touchdowns. So because of that height size differential in the red zone, he could be a target for you. It is definitely a developmental type of player for him. And he only played 5 games last year too due to injury. So his previous year, 2021, looked a lot better. It was 73 catches for just under 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, 9.5 yards per catch. So again, small school, those numbers might be deflated a little bit because of that sort of an offense. But he's a late round guy that I definitely think you can get in rounds 5 or later that might have some developmental prospects to him.
All right. So I have to do this because when I was going through and writing all my stuff, I felt very good about this because it's funny, and this is no shade at all to Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is going to be a really good pass catching tight end in the league. But he's the best route runner amongst the group, but it's not a blocker. Soft hands and catches everything, but it's not a blocker. It's not a blocker. He's going to be a great pass catcher. He's going to be fantastic. Yeah. But man,
absolutely,
it's going to be there are different flavors of what you're going to want in this tight end group. The only guy that I see as a really big all around guy right now is a Michael Mayer. I think Darnell Washington can grow into that though, because the physical traits are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that the diamond that just needs a little bit of polishing is Darnell Washington, and it might not be that he really needs polishing. It just needs that people need to polish their glasses a little bit.
Yeah, I think
to actually see
a little bit more
do.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I got nothing else prospect wise. You got anything else?
No, sir. That's it for me for the line and the tight ends.
All right, man. Let's get the hell out of here. You got some plans, and I got some plans as well. So, guys, this was the Lineman Lounge. We just took you through our likes and our dislikes on some of the all-line and tight end prospects. We appreciate you guys joining us. Anytime you can give us some of your time, we are always appreciative of that. If you want to interact with the show, go on Facebook. We got a Facebook group. Evo dominates that goddamn thing. We got the Twitter, which
I don't think we fell for any April Fool's stuff yesterday either.
No, we didn't. I made sure to double check because I knew what fucking day it was. Twitter, we are very active.
So the Broncos kind of put out some uniform thing that was an April Fool's joke. At the end of the video, though, there's a little bit of shred to truth. Apparently, they are looking at a helmet redesign for the logo. They did say that. They're like, yeah, you'll see a little bit of stuff with our helmet possibly going forward. So Broncos might be getting a new helmet. We'll see. They've had that same helmet for quite a while.
Yes, they have. But yeah, so if you want to interact, go to the Facebook group, the Twitter at Lineman Lounge. We are now verified. I decided to bite the bullet and paid Elon Musk his fucking money so he could get a blue check mark. So you'll see us with a blue check mark now on Twitter. We got TikTok, Instagram, and you can listen to this show anywhere podcasts are found. And if you want to watch these beautiful faces, go to the YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get your notifications every time that we go live. We will be back next week. I thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yep.
See you.
See you.